All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Q&A, Migrating Your Tempo Apps to Jira Cloud. So as the title suggests, today's session is all about answering your questions on migrating your Tempo apps to Jira Cloud. Thank you to everyone who pre-submitted questions, and thanks in advance to those of you who are going to ask questions during this session. Now, before we get this kicked off, we'd like to get a bit of info on your motivations for being here. Let's launch our first poll. So I'm going to launch that. You will see that there are two questions. The first one is, where are you in your migration journey? There are 5 options to choose from. And then there's a second question: which Tempo apps are you planning to migrate or have migrated? All right, and let's end that poll. So for the first question, where are you in your migration journey? Have quite a few people that are still evaluating options. The most popular answer is that you're planning or testing migration. You're definitely in a good spot. For mid-migration or already migrated to cloud, there's not too many of you. And then there's just a handful of you that are not sure or just exploring. For that second question, it looks like we have a lot of timesheets and or capacity planner people, as well as a few structure, and then some people that are timesheets, capacity planner, and structure, and just a small number of you that are not sure. So thanks so much for your participation there. That is great. All right, so who do we have here today? So my name is Connor. I'm a learning content specialist here at Tempo. Part of my role is ensuring that customers like you gain value from sessions such as this. So you're going to hear quite a bit from me today. We also have a few others. So we have 3 experts here whose voices and expertise you will hear very soon. So first we have Susan. She's our product expert for timesheets, capacity planner, financial manager, and other Tempo apps. We also have Alexander. He's our product expert for structure, PPM, and Gantt charts. And we also have Daniel with us today. Daniel is a senior solutions engineer here at Tempo and an expert on all things migration. You're going to hear from him in a minute. And we actually have a few more Tempo folks in the background who are helping to answer your questions. So we've got a wealth of knowledge for this session. Trust that you're in good hands to ask the questions that you have regarding migration to the cloud. All right, topics for today. So we're going to give a quick overview of Atlassian's data center end-of-life announcement and migration timeline. This may be a review for many of you, but we'll go over it quickly. We're then going to point out what we're calling headline features. So these are features of our cloud apps that improve on how they function from DC. We'll go through each app one at a time. We'll then really get into the specifics to help you prep your migration. And then the second half, or maybe even more than that, of our webinar is really going to be answering your pre-submitted questions, as well as questions that you ask here live today. So like I said, you can ask questions in the Q&A feature at any time. We have many people on the call to answer them. And we'll end by quickly discussing some extra resources to help your migration. All right, so I'm now going to pass it to Daniel. Daniel's going to speak about Atlassian's DC end of life and migration timeline. Take it away, Daniel.
All right. So as you can see here, it looks like Atlassian has said that they're going to stop supporting DC in December 2029, which seems like it's going to be a really long way away, but it's really not when you look at the process that's required for migration. Some of these migrations will take a lot of time, requiring analysis, test migrations, testing after the fact, and maybe some remediation for your environments as a whole. So while 2029 is the official end of life for it, the teams that wait until 2028 or 2029 to start that will be behind the ball. So the earlier you start, the more time you're going to have to plan, test, and migrate, in addition to taking advantage of cloud-only features and functionality on both the Tempo and Atlassian side. Next slide, please. Moving to cloud, though, isn't just about where Jira is hosted. It's about transforming how your teams will work. So cloud will enable faster updates, built-in automation, and easier scalability. IT teams can spend less time maintaining infrastructure and more time delivering value. And for project leaders and PMOs, it opens the door to modern collaboration, smarter insights, and seamless integrations. It's not just a lift and shift. It's an opportunity to modernize and take advantage of new features. So where does Tempo fit in this journey? Our suite of cloud apps are designed to help organizations gain visibility and control as they move to cloud. They let you manage time, resources, and costs seamlessly across Jira projects, no matter where you are in the migration process. And because they're cloud native, you get continuous updates and integrations that help you plan, track, and deliver more effectively. And the vast majority of these updates will only be available on our cloud apps. For customers already using Tempo apps on data center, there's a clear advantage to migrating sooner. Tempo cloud products offer enhanced performance, unified data across teams, and new insights you simply can't get on data center. It's a smoother, smarter transition.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel, for that overview. That's great. So now we're going to get into our next section, so Tempo Cloud Apps headline features. So cloud is the future, and that means that our focus is on cloud apps. The following slides show features that are only available on the cloud versions of Tempo tools. So first, Timesheets. With the cloud version of Timesheets, you get intelligent AI-powered suggestions through integrating with other tools. These include Google Calendar, Microsoft 365 Calendar, VS Code, and JetBrains. This eliminates manual entry, significantly reducing errors and freeing up your time freeing up your team for more strategic tasks. Next, we have Capacity Planner. So like Timesheets, which it of course seamlessly works with, it also integrates calendars from Google and Microsoft 365. Other features to note that are only available in cloud are story point planning, team planning, and resource skills. These features provide a lot more functionality and flexibility in how you plan while keeping everything in sync with how your data is set up in Jira. Next, we have Structure PPM. So on cloud, Structure has powerful integrations with apps like Strategic Roadmaps and Power BI Connector. Gantt charts, our powerful add-on to Structure, also has an integration with Capacity Planner. This is an example of how Tempo's cloud apps continue improving with how they integrate with each other. Some other cloud-only features worth noting is the cross-team PI Planner, which helps distributed cross-team planning, Basic Insert, which lets you automatically add work items to your structure, similar to how you search for work items in Jira, and Company Report, a feature currently in our early access program that provides high-level reporting functionality right in Structure. So as anyone who has Structure knows, it is very flexible. You can make it work how your team works. The future of Structure Cloud will have even more ease of use and deep integrations with other Tempo tools. All right, so we're going to get into the details of migration in a couple minutes here, but first we have another poll. So this one has 2 questions as well. I'm going to get that launched. Just 1 second here, please. All right, you should be able to see that now. So 2 questions. The first one, what is your biggest migration concern? There are 5 options there. And then question 2 is, have you tested a migration using JCMA, Jira Cloud Migration Assistant? All right, thank you so much for your participation on that one. So let's have a look. What's your biggest migration concern? Most of you, or not most of you, sorry, but the most popular answer is data integrity and continuity. That's really good to know. Quite a few of you said feature parity between DC and cloud. Quite a few of you said migration tooling. Only a handful of people said user adoption and change management. And a few of you also said compliance and data residency. That's very good to know. For number 2, have you tested a migration using the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant? Looks like quite a few of you said yes, successfully, which is great to hear. Many of you have, but are running into some issues. The most popular answer, no surprise, I would say for this webinar is that you haven't yet, but you plan to. And there are a small number of people that are not sure what JCMA is, so that's good to know as well. Thanks everyone so much for your participation there. Okay, so let's get into it. First, we'll talk about what the JCMA, so Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, is and why you should use it. Then we're going to talk about migrating different Tempo apps. So first, the JCMA, Jira Cloud Migration Assistant. So this is a free app built and maintained by Atlassian. It makes the process of migrating from DC to the cloud much easier than doing it manually. It's a project-based method that allows you to select with more flexibility which projects and apps you want migrated to the cloud. Using this method, Tempo's work logs and its core features will be migrated automatically. The migration process is divided into tasks. So each task has the responsibility to migrate a specific part of Tempo's core. As the tasks finish, you can follow the progress via a progress bar, showing your migration status in real time until it hits 100%. Now let's go through some important pre-migration steps when it comes to migrating timesheets and capacity planner specifically. Okay, so we have this in two parts. Part one. First of all, we recommend that you read Tempo's DC to cloud documentation, as well as Atlassian's pre-migration checklist. There are precautions described there that will help you have a successful migration. We can't include all the details here, but we're including many important ones. So reading this documentation and the checklist will help you get the full picture. That said, here are some major ones to note. So first of all, ensure that the JCMA is installed and up to date in your DC data center instance. Also ensure you're using the latest version of each Tempo app. So at the time of this, in early December 2025, you should be using a minimum app version 16.0 to allow for a successful migration. To continue, turn on debug logs in your Jira DC instance. This will provide valuable insights during the migration process if anything goes wrong. Also, be sure to check the time zones of the DC and the cloud instances before migrating. They need to be the same, otherwise work logs may shift one day back. And very important, test your migration in a controlled environment before doing it in a production instance. Okay, so now some tips for migrating structure. So here is the prep work. First, know the differences. So the structure app on server DC is not a carbon copy of the cloud version. Take some time to review which features line up and where there are differences. We have comprehensive feature comparisons in our Help Center. Also, we're constantly working to bring missing on-prem functionality to cloud so that you see little difference in how you work after transitioning to cloud. Then audit your structures. So if you've been using structure a long time, you've likely created lots of structure boards. Some of them may now be irrelevant. So there's no need to bring these obsolete boards to the cloud. The Manage Structures page can help you find boards that haven't been open for a while. You can also use Groovy scripts to search for unused structures. So we have examples of Groovy scripts in our JCMA documentation. So be sure to check that out. Further, make sure every view you want to have on cloud is tied to a structure. Otherwise, those orphan views will not migrate. And lastly, on this slide, check structure size. So on cloud, due to architectural limitations, there's a 30,000 item cap per structure. If you have structures bigger than 30,000 items, you'll need to break them down or optimize them before migration. So our Help Center has a best practice manual on how to deal with these large boards. Though note that a 50,000 item structure board limit in Structure Cloud is currently a work in progress. Continuing on, you want to prepare the environment by installing the correct apps. So first of all, install the JCMA app on your server DC instance. And then also make sure the Structure and Gantt apps are already installed and active in your cloud site. Also check permissions. So the person running the migration needs admin rights in both the old environment, so server or DC, and the new one, cloud. And test it first. So if possible, run a trial migration to a cloud sandbox. It's the best way to spot problems and fine tune the process before touching your production site. Okay, so we've come to that time where we can answer the great questions that many of you sent in when you registered. Let's get into them. So we've broken them into 3 sections: general migration questions, questions for migrating timesheets and capacity planner, and then a section for migrating structure and Gantt charts. First, we have some general questions. So speakers, please help me with these. So our first one we have is, how do I know whether to use the JCMA or migrate manually?
I can answer that. So at the current state, migrating with JCMA is the recommended and obviously the easiest way to move everything from DC server to the cloud. It does it automatically. It takes care of everything moving in one attempt, or you probably can migrate Jira data separately and then application data, but both with the JCMA, and it allows automatically connects everything together on the cloud side. So it used to be possible to use other options, and it's still possible, really. For example, if we talk about tempo timesheets, you technically can create a bunch of API calls and grab everything from the DC side and then move it to the cloud side. But that would require building very comprehensive system and with a lot of effort. Same for the structure. You could technically recreate everything on the cloud side manually, but again, it's a lot of work, and it's much more easy to do that automatically with the tool that Atlassian provides.
Thank you, Alex. Moving on to the second one, is data residency for Tempo apps in Canada possible? If not, when?
I can answer that as well. So at the moment, Atlassian supports multiple data residencies. We at Tempo at the moment support 2 options, United States and Germany. We definitely considering supporting other options as well, and Canada is one of those. We're looking into that. It's not that easy. It takes a lot of resources and a lot of considerations, but we lean to support that in the future. So we will update on that probably later in the beginning of next year, but it's highly possible.
Perfect. Thanks for that background, Alex. Okay, similar. What type of personal sensitive data is stored offshore? In our case, not in Australia.
And I can jump on that one. So for that, as Alex just mentioned, data residency is the US and EU at this moment. With that, though, Tempo itself does not store your user data. It gets anonymized before it comes our way. So you don't really have to worry about that part as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. Need detailed steps for Tempo migration. What is the order for migration? Should we have all tickets in cloud before Tempo migration?
I can take that as well. So we will be talking about that in details in a couple of minutes, because spoiler alerts, we have similar questions in product dedicated part of this webinar. But generally, JCMA supports both options. You can migrate everything in one batch. So you can take all the Jira data, Tempo data, and move it to the cloud, or you can move first Jira data, make sure that everything is fine, and then migrate applications data. It depends on your flow in the company. I would say the latter option is more preferable, specifically for timesheet and planner. When you move first Jira data and you have everything ready on the cloud, and then move applications. And one of the recommendations is to contact our support team before you start moving application data, so we could help you. We can check everything is ready, and if you have any questions, we can step in immediately.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Alex. How about Teams group migration? Is this a question that we want to answer now, or do we want to save this for product specific?
I mean, I could answer it now real quick if you want.
Sure.
For that, as Alex mentioned, most everything comes across in JCMA. JCMA is a fantastic tool that's come a long way in the last few years. If there's some kind of complexity, though, that requires a more manual migration, a lot of these can be created or moved from your DC environment to your cloud environment via APIs. The one thing that won't be recreated is permission schemes, and you'll have to do that manually, but there are ways of simplifying processes along the way.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. A couple more here. So limitations in DC to cloud migration, for example, number of work logs per issue that can be migrated.
Yeah, so I'll take that one again. That was a big one that came across earlier this year when Atlassian put limits on how many work logs per issue could be used. Now, there are solutions for this already in place on the cloud side that are implemented. And what we ask is that if you do have large instances, more than 10 million work logs total, that kind of thing, contact our help desk directly. We have forms for it on our portal. And we can help with that before the migration process gets started. Prior to that, though, this is one of those areas where leaving a little bit of time really helps. There are some pre-migration steps that are outlined on our help desk or within our knowledge base that can help along the way, as well as certain JCMA functions that are going to help with that as well.
Perfect again. Let's answer this last one. So do you have some actual customer / live data on how long it takes to migrate app data within Tempo? So we're planning for migrating within a weekend service window, but are concerned. So it would be nice to pre-estimate and plan how long a full Jira migration will take us.
And I'll handle that last one as well. So that is a very varied question. Having done a lot of migrations myself and seeing where JCMA really has come the distance over time and towards making these migrations more accurate and faster, handling it within a weekend is extremely probable. I've seen very large instances go very quickly, especially as time moves on. However, when it comes to answering that or how much data that we have on hand, that's going to vary based on how many apps you have, how many work logs are there, the size and the age of the instance, and all sorts of things. So we don't really have that specific information on hand. But as you get closer, your Atlassian migration manager or whatever partner you're working with should have more information that kind of clarifies that as you go.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, so that's our general questions. We're now going to move on to product specific ones. Let's go for it. So first we have timesheets and capacity planner. So first question, we've talked about pre-migration. What are some steps that we could take post-migration?
So, well, pre-migration and post-migration, there are different things that you have to think before you migrate, but there's actually more things you have to think about after you migrate because data are different, workflows are different, configuration has changed, and people will need to be trained and adopt the new changes. So we have created a post-migration kind of guide for you to know the differences and why are they different and how you can, how do you say, train your users to use them correctly. Like to learn the new workflows. And probably you will have to also update your training guides, things like that, to help them go through the migration changes. So I have sent out, sorry, let me send it to everybody in the chat. Our onboarding guide for post-migration, so that you will have a much better idea on what was before and what's after, and the minor, well, usually the features are there and they are new features, and you will see the differences and how you can help your users to adopt easier and faster. So please take a look.
Perfect. Thanks for that context and sharing that link, Susan. So yeah, everyone, you should be able to see that in the webinar chat. Next question. So I mainly use Tempo Planner or Capacity Planner. How will my planning and reports migrate to the cloud?
Okay. So for all the planned data will be migrated through JCMA. Everything will be transferred, and the reports will be there. But the thing is, if there are permissions that you need to filter through again, because even though the reports are, because the report is essentially a link with all the filters saved. So it's still there. It still works. It just, you may want to go through the permissions again, because even though the link is still there, when you click on it, if you don't have the right permission set up, you won't see anything. It's per user base. Okay.
Thank you, Susan. What's the best approach to migrate dynamic drop-down work log attributes?
Okay, so this is a feature that was recently added. So it wasn't there before. So all the previous user who migrated onto cloud, they won't have it. Or if they want it, they have to go through like manual migration. But now this feature is available and it's included in the JCMA migration path. So you don't have to do much, but just run through the JCMA tool and it will be on the cloud.
Perfect. I'm interested in questions regarding how obfuscation of work log entries, GDPR, work. I like the aggregation of work logs feature, but it's hard to configure for many issues.
Okay, so for the GDPR, all the work logs, if you have the correct permission, you will be able to see them. If you do not have them, you won't see the details. But per project wise, you can still see the hours that was logged for the issue. That's where the obfuscation of the work logs that you will see on the Jira side. But on Tempo side, as long as you have the correct permission, you will see everything. And the crucial part is if you don't have a permission, even though Jira shows you everything, every work log that you see is done by the user Tempo timesheet. So this is a lot of people, they don't get used to the difference between what you see on the data center versus on the cloud. On the cloud, Tempo hosts our own work logs. We make a copy of the work log into Jira with a generic user, which is Tempo timesheet. So if you don't have permission to see in Jira, you will only see everything as a Tempo timesheet and no other details. You will see the hours, but you won't see the work details description. You won't see who did it. You will just see what basic Jira allow you to see. Okay, so this is where we done in terms of GDPR. And the also users information, again, we want to emphasize, Tempo does not store any user information. Tempo will retrieve this information every time it's requested by the user, and every time when we run the report, when we need it, we pull it from Jira directly. We don't store them in Tempo database. Okay, and for the aggregation of the work log feature, this is a new feature that we have for internal issue because of the new Jira 10K work log limit per issue. So this is a lot of customer, especially like large enterprise customer, they have big problem with this feature because they want to maintain the same issue key, the same issue for, let's say, vacation, sick days, pay leaves, everything. So they don't want to change it every 2-3 months. So what we have is we aggregate the work logs for the Jira side. We have one work log per day per issue. So that means you have 3,000 users logging times against that one work log for one day. But on the Tempo side, you still have every single work logs in Tempo database. So that way it will not breach. We will still follow Jira 10K work log limit rule, but you still get to maintain that one single issue for, I think the date is like 20 something years. So yeah. So that's the feature for internal issues.
Great. Lots of context. Thanks so much, Susan. We have a few more covering timesheets and capacity planner. So what is the recommended method to bulk extract timesheet entries, particularly billable hours and their rates, on a schedule for sending to our finance system?
Okay. The best way is always the using Tempo REST API. Like 80% of users use that, unless you have some data lake tool such as Power BI, Easy BI, then you can have the connector that just retrieve all the information for you directly. But it's usually on cloud, it's usually the best way is just using REST API, write up the script and schedule it whenever it's suitable for you. And you should get all the information available. If there's anything you wish to get and it's not available, REST API is a much faster, method for us to make sure that the data is available for you instead of going through UI or going through reports.
Perfect. Any recommendations on typical account management in big companies? Accounting department in charge of the accounts authorizing projects to consume them, for example. We currently have a process in place with approval steps and management of who can add accounts in projects versus who can assign accounts to issues.
Okay. So for the account feature, it's pretty much the same on cloud versus data center. The only difference is the rate, cost rate, the revenue rate for the price table. On cloud, you need to have financial manager installed, and on data center, it comes with it, so you don't have to do anything. And to manage it, how you manage on data center is pretty much the same as how you manage it on cloud. So there's not much of differences in terms of workflow and the data.
Thank you. And a couple more on the next slide. Is there API rate limiting when using API to move the data? So imagine migrating 1 million issues containing about 5 million work logs.
Yes, there are actually Tempo API server has a limit. I mean, every server has a limit, and we do control them. So that means if you write up the script pulling all the data, it's better to have some kind of follow some kind of cadence and rules that will not first jam up our server. And also you need to rigorously check your scripting to make sure it does not cause any errors. Because if you do, it jam up the server, and then whoever is monitoring the server will block your access until you make the change or until you contact Tempo support, and we will, unblock you. But please, if you have a lot of data going through that especially you want to migrate, you want to pull the data from Tempo into any third-party software, which is fine, Tempo allows it. But the thing is, as long as your script runs correctly and in a correct cadence. And here I'm sending you a best practice page. So this is the page that we would ask you, please kindly follow it, okay? And it's crucial for everybody so that you get your data on time correctly and nobody's jamming out the server. Cool?
Cool. Thanks, Susan, for sharing that. Everyone make sure to look at the chat to see or to click that link. We got one more for you, Susan. What options exist for connecting Tempo to external reporting solutions? Currently, we make use of the Get Worklogs servlet endpoint. Does something like that exist for Tempo Cloud?
Unfortunately, not really. Like servlet API, because it's a breach of security on cloud, so it's no longer available. And there are workarounds, which means whatever you need to get with REST API instead of servlet API. And you still gets everything. All the parameters, all the data are available through REST API. We make sure that everything's there for you. If there's anything that you want, any endpoints or any data points that you're looking for is not available, contact support and we will make sure that it's available for you. Okay, so here is another articles that shows you how the differences are between the servlet API and REST API and how you can work around it. Okay, and if you have other connectors already, then you probably don't even need this, because then you will be able to pull the data directly with the connector on cloud.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, so there's the 3 links that I sent out, so please take a look. They are very crucial for you, and if there's any questions, please let us know and we will try to support you as much as we can.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you so much, Susan. We're actually going to move on now to a few that we have for structure PPM and Gantt charts. This webinar was slotted for 45 minutes. If we go over a few minutes to make sure that we can answer everyone's questions, that is totally okay. Alex, what are some steps to take post-migration?
Okay, so post-migration. The main thing is when you migrate your structures, you will see that all your structures will be marked as review required. So pretty much what you need to do is to open your structures and see that everything is okay. We have almost everything regarding feature parity on the cloud. So everything mostly should be migrated the same way as you have it on DC. But some little functionalities is still in progress. So you may notice that something is missing, like some generators might miss formulas. We've been using wiki markup on the DC, and now it's wiki markdown on the cloud. It's based on Atlassian, not our decision. So this syntax is a little bit different. So you may need to adjust a little bit your views. So that's what this review requirement is. So pretty much you need to check that everything is fine, then hit that structure is reviewed, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You also would probably need to check permissions. because permissions in structure based on permissions in Jira. And if something is not migrated, some of the groups or users are not migrated, you may notice that these permissions are not mapped absolutely equally. So that is also something that you need to check, especially for structure owners. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So just make sure that everything is fine.
Perfect. I'm looking for tips to migrate multiple batches from Jira Data Center. Is it possible to not import all the structures each time?
Well, yes, it is possible. So as I already mentioned that today, you can migrate separately Jira data and then migrate application data on top of that. Same applies to structures, but you can also migrate structures separately. So when you prepare for migration, when you create your migration in JCMA, there is an option to select which structures will be taken in this attempt. So you can migrate structures in little batches, selecting the one that you specifically need. The important thing is that if you migrate the same structure several times, it would create duplicate of the structure. So you have the same structures equally the same on the cloud side. So then you need to make sure that you clear those duplicates on the cloud side. So you just need to pay attention so you would not have the same structures twice on the cloud side.
Sounds good. Is it planned to add the option of deep copying structures to structure PPM on cloud? Whoops. Sorry.
Yes, just to get a little bit deeper on that, the difference between copying or cloning structure in DC and cloud is that on DC, you're not only copying this structure per se. What I mean is copying generators, views, permissions, transformations. You can also select cloning the Jira issues. So you're pretty much copying the whole content of the structure. On cloud, you can only copy the generators itself and the views. So yes, we have that in our backlog. We are planning to implement that probably next year. So that's in our radar, and we would like to make this feature parity available.
Perfect. And this last question, Alex, it sounded like you might have partly at least answered this in the second question, but if not, do you have anything more to add to this question?
Yeah, it's pretty much what I already mentioned earlier. So that depends on what kind of road you've selected for moving everything to cloud. You can move all your applications along with your Jira project, which I guess easy, but it's not always work for bigger customers with bigger instances. So moving Jira data first, Jira projects first, and all the permissions and users, and then moving applications is probably more suitable for such customers. The only recommendation, again, is if you migrate structures in different batches, make sure that you don't copy the same structures several times. Or another thing we've seen a lot when structures migrated first together with Jira projects, and then they migrate again separately. In this case, that creates lots of duplicates, which would have to be cleaned up manually, which is a lot of work. So that's the things that need to be paid attention on.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. I am going to keep you on the mic because let's answer at least just a couple live questions. Everyone, all the Tempo folks in the background are doing a really great job answering the questions that are coming in the Q&A feature, but let's get a couple live answered. So there's one here, and forgive me because I'm just looking at them now because I was looking at the other questions before, but this question is, because we migrate in multiple batch, would it be possible to choose which structure to migrate each time instead of solution right now that migrates all structures? What happens if I migrate 3 months later, the project and the structure, insert formula, etc. has updated? Does it update the cloud one as well? Is there any plan to automate the permission, the structure permission, since when you migrate, you have to go through manually all structures to put the permission back? Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, that's very good aligns with what I already described.
Yeah.
So the things that need to be added is yes, we can migrate in batches. It's an option there in JCMA. About the gap between migrating Jira data and structure data, well, it's also possible. But the thing is, because structure works precisely on Jira data, it works on the content of the Jira, on issues, on links, on dependencies. If you've change something in the structure on DC, which is relies on DC data and then migrate that structure to cloud, and cloud tries to map that to the old data which have been already migrated previously to cloud. You might see some mismatches, you might see some missing issues. So having such a big gap, probably not a great idea. But again, it depends on what kind of changes are there. If there's small ones, you can probably just adjust that on the post-migration steps.
Perfect. Thank you for that additional context. Okay, we're almost 5 minutes over. I do think we probably need to wrap things up. Thank you for everyone that pre-submitted your questions and for those questions that you're asking during the webinar that many of us are answering. Do know that you will get the slide deck after in the post-webinar email. So there will be links there that you'll be able to check out that we've mentioned throughout this call. I will let you know we do have a brand new migration hub. I think this was shared in the chat a little bit earlier on, actually. But so this is one convenient place where you can find links to everything you need to help you with your migration. So such as links to guides on our help center and other helpful resources like ones that have been shared during this session. So be sure to check that out, the Migration Hub. And that will bring us to the end of our webinar. So there will be a pop-up survey when the webinar ends that'll ask you a few questions about the content we covered. We appreciate all answers, feedback, and suggestions. As I said, there's also going to be a follow-up email with the recording of this webinar and the slide deck used with all those great resources. So thank you so much for your attendance and participation. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.